Let me just crack open this IPA. Okay.
So it's you could throw up
official.
On your trash can?
Welcome. Welcome to the Power Hour Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Barrett, joined as always by the cherubic John Proctor. This is a DFS podcast. During the regular season and preseason, Johnny and I are going to go over the slate, give you our cash game lineups and top plays each week, but we've gotten restless this offseason. We just concluded our series on MFL 10s, and now we're doing a special edition podcast on the Scott Fishbowl. This pod is for the 480 people playing in the league this year. If you're not playing, feel free to turn the pod off. It's a special league with very specific scoring settings, so I get it. But I'd strongly recommend against it just because of how awesome our guest is today. Today we have on TJ Hernandez, someone I've really been looking forward to having on the pod for quite a long time. He's associate editor for 4for4 and co-host of the DFS MVP podcast. I've been a big fan of TJ's for a while now. I listened to his podcast pretty much every week last year, and it was a big inspiration for us with this show. When Johnny asked if I wanted to start a DFS podcast last year, I think my words were literally, hey, TJ Hernandez's pod is awesome. It's clearly put a lot of work into it, so let's just be a drunker, less professional version of that. He's been putting out some amazing articles all year, particularly his work on coaching tendencies. I've been a big fan of that. Make sure you check all those out and see what conclusions he draws from the arrivals of guys like Hugh Jackson and the promotion of Mike Mularkey. Also, how different coaches react to different game scripts. He has terrible taste in beer, but his Twitter is a must-follow. His stat game is out of control. I pride myself in putting out some really great, interesting stats on Twitter that no one else is talking about, but TJ is easily one of the best in the industry at doing that. TJ, how's it going?
What's up? I have so many mixed emotions after that intro. Like, I'm really honored that you want to be a drunk version of me, but then you dropped the IPA bomb, and I don't know, man. I'm excited to be here because you guys have been crushing it. But I'm a little bummed that we're doing this like midday West Coast time because I was hoping I could drink with you guys. So I'm sticking to the ice water for this one.
You can't just get hammered drunk at 2 p.m.?
I mean, I can. I've been known to do it from time to time, but I got some work to do. It's like grind time. Fantasy football's upon us, so got to keep the drinking to 4 times a week.
That's fair.
For those of you that don't know, TJ is a big hater of IPAs. If you were drinking, what would your drink of choice, TJ, today?
Usually when I'm doing a pod, I like to do the hard stuff. So maybe like a nice scotch or something, just to, it's always a special occasion to hang out with my boys from fantasy football. So bring out the good stuff, right?
Yeah, nice. All right, well, let's get into it. The Scott Fishbowl. Let's talk about some of the things that make it so unique as opposed to like regular high-stakes leagues or anything like that. It's a league of 480 teams. It's made up of 320 fantasy analysts and 160 fans. Both Johnny and I are participating for the first time. This is TJ's third year in, and TJ, you finished second in your conference last year?
Yeah, but the year before, I'm pretty sure I finished like bottom 2 in the whole contest. So don't give me too much credit. It's like I'm basically just average at this fantasy football thing.
I wouldn't go that far, but let's say maybe you just hit your stride, like a sophomore running back, Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Freeman style.
Melvin Gordon.
So yeah, there are 40 leagues. There are 40 leagues of 12 teams each and 8 conferences. It's a 22-round slow draft with 1 QB, 1 super flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 3 regular flex spots, as well as a bench of 11 players, no kickers, no defenses. It's a fab league, no trading allowed. But the scoring system is really what makes it so unique. I find it more even than typical standard or PPR or half PPR. It's basically standard scoring except half PPR for running backs and wide receivers and full PPR for tight ends. It's also 0.25 fantasy points per carry for all players. Also, no negative points for turnovers. Playoffs in this league are kind of weird. It's 30 teams from each conference make the playoffs. Then that gets pared down to 10 teams by week 15. The top scorers crowned conference winner. Then in week 16, the 12 best teams battle it out, and the highest scorer is crowned the Scott Fishbowl champion. The draft is tomorrow, Monday the 11th. All right, TJ, how are you preparing for the Scott Fishbowl this year?
The scoring changed so much this year. For anyone that doesn't know, it switched from, you touched on it, 0.25 points per carry and half PPR for wide receivers and then full PPR for tight ends, compared to last year where it was still 0.25 points per carry, but it was full PPR for all positions. So that really threw a wrench in things. So basically I just ran a bunch of numbers, looked at where players would have finished last year in this scoring system, both on points per game and overall points for the season, and then, of course, took it a step further, looked at projections, and then plugged in SFB 480 scoring to see kind of how players are expected to measure up in scoring there. And basically it makes it so there probably isn't going to be one dominant strategy. There's lots of ways to attack this, and like you said, puts all these positions on a really, really even playing field. So just trying to figure out the best angle to go with that, and I think we'll get into these position specifics throughout the pod, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I pretty much did the exact same thing. I write for PFF, if you guys at home didn't know. And if you subscribe to PFF, you get access to their projections, and I did the same exact thing. I put that on an Excel spreadsheet, changed the scoring system around to Scott Fishbowl, and saw where guys kind of finished out, see who got a big bump in the system, as opposed to like PPR, which I'm more familiar. And then I'll just be using that as kind of like my jumping off point. So like when I'm doing this slow draft, as players get selected, I'm just going to cross them off my list and see who's left with the highest projection. And I think that's a pretty decent way of going about it. I also did the exact same thing where I looked at 2015's totals in PPR and then kind of cross-referenced it to Scott Fishbowl scoring. TJ, you want to talk a little bit about what you found when you did that?
Yeah, so basically what happened is all these high-volume running backs got a huge boost. And then we saw anyone that was very, very reliant on PPR, which is kind of like the classic pass-catching running backs, we saw them get a big drop-off. And then also we should mention the quarterbacks that are high-volume rushers, they see a big bump too. One thing we didn't mention is there's no points for negative points for interceptions. So we saw a lot of those quarterbacks like the Tannehills, the Andrew Lucks, even Jay Cutlers. We saw them get a big bump in scoring too. So that's something that I actually think is going to get overlooked a lot. But just quickly touching on what the effect was last year. So last year, if we look at fantasy points per game, we saw the top 5 scores all come from the running back position. Devontae Freeman, Jamal Charles, Le'Veon Bell, AP, and Todd Gurley. Of course, that's on a points per game level. If we look at overall scoring, we see Devontae Freeman, Adrian Peterson up top, but Adrian Peterson got a really big bump because he just sees such a big volume on the ground. The gap between him and Devontae Freeman was only 17 points, and then we see that big group of wide receivers kind of finish in the top 10, but that's just because they stayed healthy. So, I mean, if these running backs stay healthy, there's a good chance that we could see 4 or 5, even more guys outscore the top receivers just because of that scoring. And then another huge effect we see that it is kind of a pseudo tight end premium because tight ends are full PPR where every other position's half PPR. So we saw these top tight ends move up a bunch in scoring last year. So Gronk basically finished as the wide receiver 6, basically on par with Todd Gurley and Chris Ivory scoring in the system. And then we also see Jordan Reed, Delaney Walker, and Gary Barnidge all outpaced A.J. Green, Larry Fitzgerald, Doug Baldwin. So you can really see how things really even out. But if these top-scoring running backs stay healthy, it's going to be hard for any position to catch them.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's no negative points for turnovers in this league. So all fumbles, interceptions, that doesn't count against you. I agree. I think people are going to look past that in this basically 2 QB super flex format. I think the big thing that this scoring switch did was it kind of takes away from the zero RB strategy that has been running so rampant this season. Like last year in PPR, there was 1 running back and 11 wide receivers to finish in the top 12. And then 5 running backs, 15 wide receivers, and 4 tight ends in the top 24. But in Scott Fish scoring last year, it was 6 and 6 running backs to wide receivers in the top 12. And then in the top 24, it was 11 running backs, 9 wide receivers, and 4 tight ends. Running backs kind of held the lead there until we got to the top 72 and the top 84 when it was perfectly even between running backs and wide receivers. So, yeah, I think that – and that's in the supposed running back apocalypse of last year where there were so many running back injuries. So I do think this does make this a little more even, and it makes the zero RB strategy a little less attractive. Right now in my league, I'm drafting from the 102 spot, and I'm fairly lost. In like two QB leagues or a QB or superflex leagues, I like to go very late at the position. Last year, I won my high stakes league with Teddy Bridgewater, Alex Smith, and Ryan Tannehill. And I think in this league where turnovers don't really hurt you and carries help, you see a lot of guys like Geno and Ryan Fitzpatrick, Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick. Those guys, even Tyrod and Alex Smith going so late, it's like really surprising. That I think my strategy is going to be to wait on QBs. Although Cam is clearly the top player according to my projections. He has over 3 fantasy point per game jump over Russell Wilson as the top QB in Scott Fishbowl scoring, and then in regular standard scoring, it's only 2.5 over Russ. But he's far and away the top scorer. I think he's in play. I think Antonio Brown is in play. And then any of the top 3 running backs like the Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Zeke Elliott, Todd Gurley. I'm completely lost. I think it's any of those guys, probably one of those running backs. TJ, what would you do if you're me?
I'm actually 1.03, so I'm pretty much in the same conundrum as you. I'm not as high on Cam as you. I think Russell Wilson's a little bit closer to him than a lot of people will give credit for, just because Cam was so far ahead of the field last year. But John Paulson only has them ranked 12 points apart on the whole season, so less than 1 point per games. But I mean that's we could debate that all day. But I think the point of your question is what position do you want to go in? It just really depends what your goal in this tournament is. You could obviously make the argument that those top 3 receivers are still the best picks just because you know what you're getting out of that position. Like I mentioned, the running backs, they dominated in fantasy points per game, but we know how fragile of a position that is. But at the same time, we're playing in a tournament where we're trying to beat 479 other people. So I'm kind of looking for a spot to where I can get the top score in the league outside of quarterbacks, and I think your best bet to land that player is to get one of those top running backs. And while there's some risk inherently in the running back position, I think that a lot of people are devaluing the position. And I am in regular formats. I'm still very much a wide receiver heavy guy in the early rounds, but I'm trying to win this whole thing. I don't care if I win my division. I'd rather come in 480th trying to get first place. So I think the more I've ran the numbers and looked at it, that if you can load up that running back position, you could potentially have 2 or 3 of the top scorers in the league on your team. So I've kind of shifting more towards that running back earlier approach and willing to sacrifice the safety of those early round wide receivers.
And I think on your point with Russell Wilson, I think another quarterback that's really, really close is probably Andrew Luck. We talked earlier that interceptions don't matter, and that's kind of like the big knock on Luck over the last few years is that he throws a ton of picks, and in this format it just really doesn't matter at all that he's going to throw picks. So he's going to be similar. If he stays healthy the whole season, he'll probably have similar rushing touchdown total to both of those guys, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, if we look at scoring from 2015, we saw Andrew Luck on a per-game basis. Scott Fishbowl scoring added 4.9 points per game to his weekly total. The only other quarterback that was over 4 was Tony Romo, and he had a pretty small sample size. Andrew Luck did too, but no other quarterback saw more than a 4-point boost per game because of the scoring system. So again, I think those no points for interception. I think that's going to end up being overlooked, even if people do listen to the pod.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that might be even more important than the yards, the fantasy points per carry, just because everyone's aware of that, but no one's really considering the bump that inefficient D-gaffy quarterbacks get. All right, so let's start on a position-by-position basis. We can circle back to what we want to do at our respective draft spots. I think we both are leaning running back. You want to start with quarterbacks here. You have a ton of ADP data I know you've been looking at. You've done a ton of mocks, so you kind of know where these guys are falling. I kind of just mentioned a few of the late-round QBs that I like. What are you doing here, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, shout out to Chubb McGrubb and all the guys at 2QBs and South Steph now for compiling all that ADP data. That's something we never had before, and I think a lot of people are really excited about it. But just kind of looking at what's been going on in the ADP and then comparing it to projections for this year, the guy that stands out above all the rest of the quarterbacks in terms of value is Marcus Mariota. Right now he's going off the board as QB 18 in Scott Fishbowl mock drafts, but John Paulson has him projected as a QB 11, and that, of course, has a lot to do with his rushing ability. The one interesting thing to note that I touched on Twitter yesterday, and I think one of you guys might have commented on it, is that the Titans are on a bye in Week 13. There's never been a Week 13 bye before, and Week 13 is the first round of the Scott Fishbowl playoffs. So you do have to take that into consideration, but I think it's probably a case where if you are in a position to get him at a really good value, you just kind of have to take him there, ride that value throughout the season, and then cross that bridge when you come to it, and hopefully just be as great as I am and get a first-round bye.
Yeah, so I like your call on Marcus Mariota. I do think he runs a lot more this year. He's going right ahead of Flacco and Cutler and Tannehill, and I like him considerably more than all of those guys. I'm going to circle back to where I'm leaning right now, and that is Blaine Gabbert in the late 12th, Mark Sanchez in the 14th, Geno Smith in the 16th, Kaepernick in the early 17th. Yeah, really just all those guys. I kind of just want to go crazy at the position, go super high upside. I mean, if Tyrod Taylor or Mariota kind of falls a bit, or Alex Smith, I might take them as like a security blanket early on, but definitely want to hit some of those late round guys. I think Sanchez wins the job. I'm not worried at all about Paxton Lynch. I think Blaine Gabbert's in the lead over Kaepernick, but both of those guys are awesome for this format just because they both run the ball a lot, and they're both super inefficient. They have pace working behind them this year. I mean, the team might go 2-14 easy, but on a Chip Kelly offense with pace and in the format, I really like that as a solid QB2, QB3. And then Geno Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. Fitzpatrick jumped like 7 spots from PPR scoring to Scott Fishbowl scoring. He ran a sneaky amount last year. He was super inefficient. And then Geno Smith is even more inefficient and runs the ball even more. And he's on that offense that I find pretty attractive. Johnny, what do you think about my late round QB approach, nailing these guys who might? I mean, it's a lot of capital to invest in the position, especially if I add like Gabbert and then Kaepernick. But what do you think about this strategy, John?
I think it makes a little bit of sense, but I think you're also grabbing guys who may not have jobs for the entire season, and I think that hurts, especially because you're when you think about it, you're not just competing on the waiver wire with people that are in your 12-person league, but you need to get players off the waiver wire that other people in other leagues are also getting. So you don't want to blow all of your free agency budget on quarterbacks when Geno gets benched for 5 games. So I'm probably looking at late quarterbacks too, but I'm probably looking a little earlier than you are, like maybe like the Alex Smiths. And I think Ryan Tannehill, like TJ mentioned earlier, is a guy that I like. I hate Ryan Tannehill, but I think in this format, he's super, super undervalued because the picks don't matter. He's going to carry the ball. He's not super great at carrying the ball. He seems a little fumble prone, but the fumbles also don't matter. So I think I'm probably hoping to get Ryan Tannehill or an Alex Smith, and I'm a little scared to grab those guys that don't really have absolute job security.
Yeah, another thing that I'm considering, and Scott, again, we're kind of in the same draft position, is I like those late round QB guys, like the really, really late guys, but I'm almost inclined to end up taking those guys as a QB3, having 3 quarterbacks I can rotate, just because if I start playing a game of chicken, which I'm usually fine with in a regular league, in this league, even if everyone in your league, even if all 11 other teams have 2 quarterbacks already, we have to wait 22 picks before your next pick. And if for some reason a couple of guys are on the same wavelength as me and they want 3 QBs too, I can really get caught with my pants down and then just end up with not even a second quarterback.
Okay, so I mean, like we said, we're kind of treating this like it's a GPP. It's right. 480 players, and we're trying to finish in like the top 15 for prizes, and then really number 1 overall for all those awesome prizes that companies like PFF and 4for4 are giving out. What if I just go like balls to the wall? Just, you know what? I think Sanchez is starting. I think Fitzpatrick's going to start. I think Gabbert's going to start. And maybe I'll get a Tyrod Taylor in like the 8th round or whatever, or wherever he's going.
I don't think Tyrod's fallen to the 8th, by the way.
Where's he going?
He's going 65th.
Top 5 rounds.
He's going 65th.
Oh, man. Okay, so yeah, 5th rounds. If I grab him there and then in the double-digit rounds, grab Gabbert and Fitzpatrick and just go full YOLO. What do you think?
Yeah.
Too risky still?
No, I don't think it's too risky. I love full YOLO. I think every decision you make in this tournament has to be – well, if it depends on your goal again. Some people might just want to win the division and try to get their free 4for4.com subscription. But if you're trying to win it, I think that you do have to have that thought in the back of your head that you're going to have to really you're really going to have to find some really, really good late value, and obviously quarterback's really a good spot for that, especially in a 2 QB league. Another thing that you really have to consider is these drafts are going to be so wildly different that you're really just going to have to gauge the temperature of your draft, because while one league might have every team with 2 quarterbacks off the board by round 6, in other leagues maybe Tyrod does fall to round 8 because you just ended up in a division where everyone's super late round quarterback. So there's going to be a lot of variation between these drafts, and I think going into any draft with a static strategy is going to be a big disadvantage.
Yeah, I think that's one interesting thing. Like I tweeted out on the podcast Twitter the 2 QBs ADP for the quarterbacks and from the mocks, and it's just the standard deviations are insane. Like 13 to 40 pick standard deviations. I mean, over the mocks, people are taking them at such different spots that you really have no idea exactly where these guys are going to fall. Like Tyrod Taylor, like Scott mentioned, on average he went 65th, but he had a 14-pick standard deviation. So, I mean, at times he was going 50th overall, which is, I mean, that's crazy to think that he's going between 50th and 80th overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point.
I just want to say,
oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, it's fine.
I was gonna say, bring up the same exact point as John, that if you look at just the top 50 players in ADP, the top 4 in standard deviation are all quarterbacks. So we see Blake Bortles is going anywhere between 38 and 67, Eli anywhere between 40 and 66. Tom Brady anywhere between 39 and 59. Carson Palmer between 35 and 52. So just in the top 50 picks, we see 4 quarterbacks that are going anywhere within a round and a half. That's a huge range of outcomes. So it's going to be really, really hard to gauge exactly where these guys are going to go. Even someone like Russell Wilson has been picked anywhere between 9th overall and 23rd overall. And that's just on average. Like, that's crazy.
That is nuts. TJ, how many quarterbacks can we expect to go in the first round and the first 2 rounds?
I could be really wrong because I've been poring over data like crazy, and like I said, things could get really wild in any draft, but I'm pretty confident that we'll see 2 quarterbacks go off the board in most drafts in the first round. I think that Cam and Russell Wilson, just because there's so much information out there this year compared to other years for this specific scoring setting, I think drafts are going to be a little sharper. I think Cam and Russell go off in the first round. By the end of the second round, I wouldn't be surprised if we see 5 quarterbacks off the board.
Is there any quarterback that you'd really want to grab early, or are you mostly just waiting to that Mariota range?
Can we check on YouTube, see if anybody in my division is listening? I really, really like Tyrod. I'm gonna have a hard time passing on Tyrod. He finished 7th in points per game in this format last year. John Paulson has him projected again 7th in quarterback scoring, and he's going off the board as QB 13 right now.
Yeah, I really like Tyrod there. I think he's going to be the first quarterback I really look at. And then after that, like I said, all the high volume and efficient guys. Also like Brock Osweiler, forgot to mention him. I think Houston led the league in last year. He's pretty cheap too. Johnny, are you there?
Yeah, man. So
who are you going with?
With quarterbacks, I think Luck is somebody I'm hoping is gonna, because I pick 5th overall, and if he falls to me in the later half of the second round, I think I'll probably take him, because he's the only guy until you get to, if you consider Jameis a running quarterback, he's the only guy until you get to Jameis who's really he's the last kind of running quarterback of those top 4 that's going to get that boost for the rushes. So I think he's pretty close to me to Russell, Rodgers, and Cam, so I'm fine to take him as the last one off the board. But then if he goes, then yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of waiting for that Tyrod Taylor, Mariota, Tannehill type of running guy. I mean, I really want a running quarterback, and I think people are a little overvaluing the guys like Carson and Ben and stuff because they're not really running the ball.
Yeah, I would lie if I didn't admit that I've strongly considered taking Russ at 1.03, but I don't think that's. I just think there's too much late round QB in my blood to do that, but I've really thought about it.
If Cam and Russ are there, you're gonna go Russ more than Cam?
Yeah, just because I don't like Cam. Just him as a human.
Really? You're a Cam hater?
Oh, dude, he's the worst. Anyone that likes Cam, you have the worst sense of what people like. How do you get through life if you buy into what Cam does?
I'll have to call him.
Are you one of those? You hate the showboaters? Is that what it is?
No, because the crazy thing is most of my favorite players in the leagues are wide receivers, but. Okay, we won't do story time. I don't want to slight anybody, but I've had personal interaction with Cam, and he's not a good person.
Wow. I will say Johnny always talks about that video with Kelvin Benjamin, and I will say my reaction to it was, wow, this dude thinks he's so fucking funny, and he is not funny at all. So I'll hate on Cam with you, too. Not as a fantasy player.
He'd be the least fun person to have a beer with in the NFL.
Does he even drink?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay. All right. Well, some fire Cam takes going on, not fantasy related. Let's jump over to the running back position. So me and TJ are in the top 3. We're probably going to go running back just because of the format, just because of the kind of boost you're getting. PFF has their top 3 projected running backs to be in order: Lev Bell, David Johnson, Zeke Elliott. In PPR, it's Lev Bell, David Johnson, and Devonta Freeman. So in the Scott Fishbowl, I kind of agree with that. Le'Veon Bell, we talked about on our last pod, is kind of a bit of an injury risk. David Johnson, I love, but I don't know if he gets as many carries as Zeke or Gurley. So I really think it comes down for me to either Zeke Elliott and Gurley. And right now I'm leaning Zeke just because maybe just because it's a brand pick, and I've written a lot about Zeke, and I really love him, and I love the spot he's in. What are you doing, TJ? Where are you leaning?
I mean, you guys said this on your pod yourself that you think Pittsburgh has the most valuable backfield in the league, and I completely agree with that. So if Le'Veon's there, then I'm going to take him. And then I like Zeke just because, again, I really like the YOLO strategy, and I don't think he's going to be taken off the field much. But let me ask you this. Ignoring carries, do you think that Todd Gurley out-touches David Johnson? Not just looking at carries. So, I mean, that's another thing that I think people are going to might trip up on in the subtleties of the scoring, because if David Johnson's going to out-touch Todd Gurley, then you should still be taking David Johnson because the reception still counts for more than a carry, right? I mean, if he out-touches Gurley. Did I say that right? I think I said it right.
Yeah, you did. That's a great point. Johnny, what about you?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to end by saying that my top 3 are Le'Veon, Zeke, and DJ.
I like that.
And that makes sense too. And one thing, when you remove the people don't realize like how much removing half of PPR affects running backs. It's like insane. So like running backs are more valuable in DraftKings than they are in FanDuel when they're pass catchers. So the thing that people don't realize is how much that makes touchdowns more valuable to a running back. So you really want a running back who's going to score touchdowns. And the problem with Todd Gurley is that like that offense has the potential of being just like god awful.
Mm-hmm.
Where David Johnson is an offense that has a potential to like, you know, the Cardinals could score the most touchdowns in the league next year and nobody would be surprised. The same with the Steelers. And, you know, even the same, I mean, the Cowboys, you wouldn't be surprised if they were like lights out. So, like, those types of guys I think are more valuable because losing half a PPR just makes touchdowns so much more valuable to those running backs. So I want the running back who I think is going to score a ton of touchdowns. So I'm probably not looking at Gurley because I don't think he's going to score a ton of touchdowns unless he creates them on his own.
Listen, no matter the format, given his price, I think Todd Gurley's undraftable. I'm not even joking. Like he's like, I can't take someone that is one-dimensional in a Jeff Fisher offense that's like John said. Like I just can't justify taking him over any player in the first round. I'm not saying he's not going to have a good year, but those first-round guys, I'd rather have all of them over Todd Gurley.
Yeah, that's bold, but that's been my reasoning why I've been taking Zeke over Gurley every chance I can. It just hasn't been playing third downs. I mean, maybe that changes this year. He was decent as a receiver in college, but the way he's been used or the way he was used last year, he's not a bell cow running back. He's not a true every down running back, and because of that, I'd much rather have Zeke. I'd much rather have David Johnson. And if I wasn't worried about Le'Veon Bell's knee, he's easily my top running back. Now, TJ, let's talk about, due to the scoring system, some of the running backs who are the IPAs of the class, meaning they get the biggest boost from SFB scoring, and some that are the Cam Newton of this class, guys who might be pass catchers and get a significant drop.
See, I know what you tried to do there. You tried to do, and it's not going to work. The fantasy IPAs are the guys that are overrated that only the sharp people realize are bad. So don't try to take. That's not going to work on me. All right. So the fantasy IPAs are the classic pass catching backs. So if we look at scoring from last year, overall scoring, obviously we saw a huge drop in overall scoring relative to other players from the wide receivers because there wasn't that full PPR. Only 3 non-wide receivers dropped more than 10 overall spots from PPR scoring to Scott Fishbowl scoring, those players were Danny Woodhead, Bilal Powell, and Theo Riddick. So basically, without full PPR, those guys, they're just not draftable if you have to take them where you would in like an MFL 10. They just see a huge drop-off. Dion Lewis falls into that category. Duke Johnson falls into that category. So you really have to devalue those guys a lot. And I hate to say it because those are guys that are all over my MFL 10 rosters. But you just have to let them fall a little bit. So those guys probably won't end up on my team a lot. But then you look at guys like the LeGarrette Blunts. I mean, Adrian Peterson obviously is already a top pick, but he has a huge boost in scoring last year. Those guys get a bump in scoring because they don't have to compete with those PPR backs. Charles Sims is another one that falls off a lot.
Yeah, and for anybody who's out there who doesn't have access to these spreadsheets and stuff, if you go to fantasydata.com and you pull up the NFL stats, just set it to FanDuel scoring, and you can see how much it affects those pass catching running backs that just drop off. I mean, Danny Woodhead falls 3 spots, and he had like out of this world season. So you just can't really touch those guys. Gio, it hurts all of those. Theo Riddick is the RB24 when you take it to half PPR last year, and he's going. I mean, he's like a 7th, 8th round pick in MFLs right now.
Yeah, I think the best way to illustrate it is that in this scoring, Melvin Gordon and Danny Woodhead are basically neck and neck for projections. Like, they should score about the same.
Just looking at the players who get the biggest boost, I'm seeing from last year, it was AP getting a boost of over 4 points, Jonathan Stewart 2, just slightly over 4 points, Todd Gurley, then Doug Martin, then Carlos Hyde, then LeGarrette Blount, then Chris Ivory, then Jeremy Hill, Frank Gore. I think Thomas Rawls, he's not on that list, but I think this year with the addition of ProSize, he can get a sneaky boost as well.
Speaking of Thomas Rawls, Adam Schefter dropped a little nugget today, an ESPN report that says that according to Rawls and according to Carroll, he will definitely be ready for training camp. So that's a guy that I think you may slip tomorrow if people haven't seen that, and he's a guy that I'll probably target because if he is ready for training camp, then he's going to push to have a lot of those early down carries.
It's a great point, Johnny.
On that note, if we're comparing ADP to projections, the biggest negative gap is CJ ProSize. So he's going off the board as the running back 37 right now. John Paulson has him ranked as the running back 48 in the scoring system. So he's being overvalued.
Who are some other guys you're targeting, TJ, that might be values that people don't realize?
We're just talking about running back?
Sure, yeah.
I think you kind of already touched on Chris Ivory. I think that it looks like he's going to go into the season as a starter. So I think people are kind of going to just naturally devalue that backfield altogether because of the timeshare. Rashad Jennings is another guy that I've been finding myself. He's available really late. Obviously, he's on the wrong side of 30, but we saw the last month of the season the Giants kind of committed to him, and it worked out really well. He was 20-touch guy for them down the stretch, and he's a guy that even in this format, he's going off in 9th, 10th round, and you could get 200-plus carries out of him. So those two guys really stand out to me. Another guy is Jeremy Langford. He's fallen pretty far. I think I saw him go off the board like in the 8th round sub-drafts, and he's another guy that could easily be 200-plus carries that I think a lot of the sharper drafters don't like. And in a format like this, I think we could take advantage of the guys that, even if we don't like them as a talent, we know the community is low on them, but if they have a chance to get that volume, they're going to be really good values.
And the big thing about Langford is like people think he's like some dynamic pass catching back, but in reality he's kind of like a plotter. And those are really the kind of, and Scott is all about the plotters. So like plotters are kind of what you want in this format in the later rounds. You want a guy who's just going to get a ton of carries, and he doesn't really have to go anywhere with them, but he's going to get points just for like running into the offensive line and falling into the ground. And that's kind of what Langford is I think is set to do for the Bears.
Yeah, I hate to admit this after what I did to him last year on Twitter, but I'm really starting to grow an affinity for Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, we talked about him a lot yesterday due to the and Johnny's not worried about the microfracture surgery. He's a big fan of his. Johnny, you want to restate your case for Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, so like Melvin Gordon, the Chargers were like trying to force him onto the field last year. So if you look at Woodhead stats, a lot of them came when they were like the games were completely out of hand, or they came in like the second half of games. His offensive line was atrocious. They don't have to be better than they were last year. They just have to be healthier than they were last year. And he's going to carry the ball in the first half of the games, and that's why they drafted him. They're not going to abandon a guy they drafted that high this quickly. And Danny Woodhead is like he's like 2 steps out the door already. He's older. His contract is running out. He's not, if they're going the Chargers, does anyone expect them to like go to the Super Bowl next year? Not really. So if they actually become that good, maybe Danny Woodhead gets a bigger role. But I don't think anyone expects them to be that good. So they're kind of looking more for the future, and Melvin Gordon is hopefully who they expect to be that. There were times where he got like 8-9 targets last year in the early half of games, and that's like really important to remember that they were putting him on the field and throwing him the ball. They want him to be on the field all the time, and if it's up to that organization, Danny Woodhead's not really going to have a big role if Gordon can be what they want him to be.
So Melvin Gordon was a running back that was hashtag bad last year, and a lot of people have moved off of him. And I'll agree with Johnny. I think he's a value, but I'm going to disagree with you on Langford in round 8, because why would you draft a plotter in round 8 when you can draft an actually talented running back on the same team in round 13? I think Jordan Howard beats out Langford in Scott Fishbowl scoring this year. It'll probably be close, but I think he's definitely the better value. I just really hate Langford. And Mike Clay's piece on that, if you haven't read it, go to Pro Football Focus, read it. It's honestly, it's like Nas's ether in fantasy football form. It's amazing. I do like, if you do want to draft a plotter, I also like LeGarrette Blount in round like 12 and a half. I think New England has a tougher schedule this year, but Vegas still expects them to improve on last season. And they do have games against Cleveland and the 49ers where LeGarrette Blount might just get like 200 yards. I think he's a solid value in this format for sure.
My biggest negative on Blount is like outside of best ball formats, I have no idea when to start him. So, and like even when you think you have an idea when to start him, like he's like one defensive touchdown away from like coming off the field for the rest of the game. So he's like super terrifying for me. And I guess if you're like swinging for the fences, he's one of those players that you might want to put in on random weeks. But I don't think I can touch him in this format.
Yeah, and you're going to have a quarter of the season where you're not going to be able to predict the Patriots game script because they're probably not going to have Tom Brady. So, if they're trying to win these close games, what are the chances that Blount's going to be on the field for those 4 games?
Yep.
Or maybe they use Blount more because they don't trust their quarterback.
Maybe. Yeah. He gets like a shrug for me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. We'll leave off on that, I guess, and move to wide receivers. I guess we got to talk about the guy that everyone's looking to draft, and that's Tavon Austin, essentially a running back playing wide receiver. I pulled out his 16-game sample versus Deion Lewis's 16-game sample from last season, and they were like almost pretty much exactly the same player, except Tavon Austin was a much more efficient runner. I feel like everyone listening to this podcast already knows this, and everyone's going out of their way to draft Tavon Austin. But what do you think about him, TJ?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. What did he finish in this scoring last year? Did he finish top, basically as a wide receiver 2, right?
Let's see. I know it wasn't like amazing, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, but out of all the wide receivers, he's like the only guy that gets a significant bump out of the scoring, because the only thing the scoring really does is hurt the high PPR guys that aren't scoring a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, so, more so than getting carries, right?
Right, so there's not really any receiver that gets a huge bump from the scoring. So if there is one guy that you should be targeting because of the scoring, it's Tavon. It's more so that there's certain guys you should be avoiding, like the Golden Tates, maybe even like an Amari Cooper if you don't think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. Those few guys that only rely on volume, they really get hurt by the scoring system.
And so Tavon Austin finished as the 21st wide receiver off the wide receiver 21 last year, sandwiched in between Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. What were you saying, Johnny?
No, and one thing with the Rams last year was that Benny Cunningham was like their third down guy, and they weren't really like they didn't like run after him to get him back. They signed him to his 1 year restricted free agent contract. So I think there's a chance that you could see Tavon Austin getting more and more of that third down role. So if he gets more of those carries and is involved at all more than he was last year, then he's going to improve on what he did last year, and return touchdowns also count.
Yeah, but this format's definitely very tough for me just because I hate half-point PPR. I try not to play in those leagues. Standard leagues, I haven't played in one of those in years. I'm I know PPR, ADP, stats, where they finish perfectly in my brain that I don't need to reference anything. And so moving this to half-point PPR kind of really screws me up a bit. I got to knock down Keenan Allen a few spots and guys like him and Jarvis Landry, whereas more guys who ranked highly in fantasy points per target or per reception, whatever, did a lot better. Guys like Sammy Watkins, let's say. So that's where my struggle is. TJ, do you think that's a smart move to definitely remember when you're drafting that guys like Jarvis Landry and Julian Edelman, the high reception guys, to kind of stay away from them and focus more on the high yardage guys?
Yeah, for sure, and it's definitely hard to make that connection or to disconnect yourself from that ADP, because especially guys like us that are doing so many MFL 10s, you're so used to if you see that name in that spot, then it's just like a snap pick. But you really have to take it into account. So those guys are, I don't want to say they're off the board, but again, going back to trying to win out against 479 other people, I'd rather target the high red zone touchdown upside guys.
Yeah, I'm definitely for me.
So I think we're talking really good. I think we're talking really good stuff right now. Like you got to stay away from this. You got to target these guys. Remember, no turnovers for quarterbacks. How sharp is our competition, do you think? Because again, it's all these fantasy analysts, and it's also everyone listening to this show who's smart and knows that we're smart and is getting hot tips or whatever. But it's still you're gonna go up against the Mike Clays, the Pat Thormans of the world. Do you think they'll know this, or do you still think that guys like Jarvis Landry and Keenan Allen are going to get a little overdrafted with people just kind of locked into PPR mode?
I think people are almost going to misclick them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're just going to see those names there, and they're going to be used to drafting them, and it's just like a snap pick for people. But again, this year is the first year we have all this mock data and all these people that have been grinding these spreadsheets and charts just for this one specific tournament. So I think that it's going to be very sharp. But again, these drafts are going to get wild. From draft to draft, it's just going to vary so much. So it's going to be really hard to anticipate what's going to happen. I think the only thing that you can do is just know yourself to knock those guys down and avoid them at their normal price.
Yeah, and you talk about Jarvis Landry and Julian Edelman, but I think another one that people don't really think about as a PPR back who really or PPR wide receiver who really is Demaryius Thomas. He's a guy who I'm probably not going to touch because he's just not good in the red zone, and he's probably going to go way higher than he should.
See, I'm kind of on the opposite end of that because he just gets so much he was really bad in the red zone last year, but even if he regresses back to league average conversion rate in the red zone, considering his target share in the red zone, he has potential to be top 3 or 4 wide receivers, and even in this scoring system.
But do you think he's really going to get back to league average? isn't he consistently not that great?
I mean, last year what he was like, it's really hard to be as bad as he was last year. He's been about league average if you look at his whole career.
Fair enough. But he is a guy that relies on volume.
Yes, for sure.
All right, let's move to the tight end position. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's like kind of tight end premium. In PPR last year, only 2 tight ends finished in the top 14, but in Scott Fishbowl scoring, 5 tight ends finished in the top 14. Jordan Reed was essentially the wide receiver 5 in terms of a points per game basis. Gronk, wide receiver 7. Delaney Walker, wide receiver 10. What are you? Do you think that's what we should be doing? Kind of like filling those spots up with tight ends that are going to slip, or do you think just because you have to start so many wide receivers, it's still better to kind of if you have them kind of even, just yield to wide receiver?
I'm struggling with this because tight end's so deep this year. So I don't feel like I need to get a Gronk or a Jordan Reed or even a Greg Olsen because I can get a guy like a Fleener or a Dwayne Allen. So even with the tight end premium scoring and the possibility if they are outscoring some top receivers to flex them, I just don't think that I need to be spending a lot of equity on those picks because the position is so deep. I mean, Antonio Gates going double-digit rounds. I already mentioned Dwayne Allen. I'm not sure where Delaney Walker's going in this format, but I'm guessing it's pretty early. But then you still have guys like Ladarius Green, Zach Ertz. Like, there's so many viable tight end ways to fill the tight end position this year that it's hard for me to justify spending too much on the spot.
Johnny?
Yeah, I sort of agree, and I think from what you guys were looking at, this change didn't really change the tight ends all that much. It gave them like a slight boost compared to the tight end premium. So I think people might sort of be overlooking that it's not that big of a difference for the tight ends. And in general, the tight ends are just in any premium thing, they're going like insanely early. So like the Gronks and the Jordan Reeds of the world, I just don't think I can get behind, especially like TJ said, as deep as it is this year. When he said Delaney Walker was also ahead of AJ Green last year, so you're looking at tight ends that were going so much later than the Gronks of the world who are finishing fairly close. So you look at some tight ends and some high-powered offenses like Ladarius Green or something like that are going so much later that have big chances for touchdowns that I'll probably lean towards.
Yeah, so I guess this segues into kind of what we want to do with our draft as a whole. And like tight end is worth more than in regular PPR where everyone's even. But you can only start one, and you got to start 3 wide receivers, and you got to start 2 running backs, and then you only have 3 non-super flex spots. What I want to do, I think I want to go like Zeke in the first round, and then when it comes back around, go running back, and then maybe take another running back, and then another running back, and then a bunch of wide receivers, and then go late round QB like I alluded to. And I think that's really what I want to do. I want to stock up on running backs just because of the scoring system. I think that's where the value is right now. And if I'm flexing 3 running backs and starting 2 elite running backs, I'm totally okay with it. And then going kind of like high upside wide receivers later that maybe aren't commanding the most targets on their team but have upside, guys like not too many people are as high on him as I am, but guys like Nelson Aguilar, who I know is going super late in this format. Guys like that, and then late round QB. TJ, I know you said you got to be flexible, and I get that, but if you had an ideal draft, what would it look like?
The closer I get to the draft, the more it's hard for me not to imagine loading up on running backs. I mean, if you really hit bingo and things break really perfectly, there's a chance that you could be starting 4 of the top 20 players on your roster in the league on your roster every week if your running backs stay healthy. I think it turns classic draft strategy completely on its head. I think you can go 0 wide receiver. You want to get a couple. I mean, the quarterback, again, you can't really say what you're going to do at quarterback before the draft just because that specific position is going to be so fluid from draft to draft. And then if you really, really want to go YOLO, you can do like a Jordan Reed, Delaney Walker combo with back-to-back picks, and hopefully those are like your primary wide receivers, even though you talked about the position necessity. You can start 2 of those guys that have, based on last year, 2 guys that are finishing like wide receiver 1s in your roster every week. And again, I want to win this thing, so I think doing something as extreme as that is the way to separate yourself.
Yeah. Although
so I'm looking at the ADP.
On the
ahead,
other
Johnny,
side too, you want to remember too that your hope with the running back scoring is that you get to use all of your waiver money on running backs. So you want to at least have enough wide receivers that you aren't wasting your waiver wire money trying to pick up startable wide receivers.
That's a good point too. It kind of like reverts back to my bell cow running back article I wrote a couple weeks back that we talked about in the Grant Barfields episode. How like backup running backs can come in and just put up monster fantasy points due to the high usage they'll get, due to kind of like the depleted nature of the roster, how there's like no one really behind them, and they just kind of assume that bell cow role where they get a lot of snaps and targets and carries. You saw that with a bunch of guys last year. And that makes sense too, waiver wire, you want to target running backs, but I'm looking at the ADP data right now, and this just is blowing my mind. Like, if I draft from the 2 spot, I can get Ezekiel Elliott, whose ADP is pick 7, and then on the way back around, I can get Jamal Charles, maybe if he falls, or Mark Ingram and Doug Martin. Looking at the ADP data right now, it's so based on the mock drafts that Chubb McGrubb, and it's an awesome name, by the way, and TJ Hernandez have done so far this summer. Like, there's so many wide receivers going in the top 12 that as sharp as we want to expect these drafts to be, it just seems like it's not, with all these wide receivers going so early, and awesome, like, elite running backs, in my opinion, like Mark Ingram, who I think has top 5 potential, and Doug Martin, who definitely has top 5 potential due to this format. I think that's crazy, yeah, and I'll definitely grab those 3 running backs if I can.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What about injuries? Are you guys worried at all about injuries? Because that's the big thing. That's the 0 RB, what makes it so appealing. I'm thinking that, listen, it's 480 teams. Let me draft my running backs and pray these stay healthy.
Yeah, first or last, man.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, first of all, you can't guess. You can't guess who's going to get hurt, and to win this thing, you're going to need things to break right for you. So it's like, even if an injury hurts me, I'm in a spot, we haven't even touched on this yet, but the waiver wire is already so thin that whether it's my running back or someone else's running back goes down, if there's that clear-cut handcuff on the waiver wire, I'm probably spending 100% of my budget. I don't care. Like, give me 15 weeks of production from a guy that's going to carry the load. Like, I just can't go into a draft thinking about injuries, especially in this format. I mean, and it's not even like the whole 0 running back thing. Injuries is only a part of it. Another big part of it is that wide receivers are just blowing away running backs in PPR scoring. That's not the case here. So the injury thing and the unpredictability is just a part of the 0 running back argument.
Yep. And the big thing with 0 RB is that you're finding third down backs too, PPR backs or whatever, and they just aren't that valuable in this format.
Yeah, I mean, drafting the we've already talked about it, the Theo Riddicks, the Duke Johnsons, the Danny Woodheads, they're not going to give you the production you can get later. So, I mean, those guys are few and far between. Like, there's a couple of guys. There's the Frank Gores, maybe the Langfords. I know, Scott, you said you don't like him, but there's just not a lot of those guys that you can get later that you're going to feel comfortable with. There's a handful of them, but not like in a regular league.
Yeah, and then you look at these like the Theo Riddicks of the world, and it's like it's not like they're gonna take over that plotter role if they go down. You know, they're like, you know, Scott's favorite running back in the entire world, Zach Zenner, behind him will take that over. So there will be some type of plotter to pick up on the waiver wire who's probably going to be more valuable than that PPR back that someone drafted at a premium.
That's definitely my favorite thing about this format, by the way, is just as a known plotter fetishist, how it just really kind of like yields to the Ben Jarvis, Green Ellises of the world. So yeah, I'm really excited for this league. But TJ, I think you just talked a little bit about something that we haven't touched on is like the depth, how deep this draft is, and what the waiver wire is going to look like. You want to talk a little bit about that and how that's going to affect your draft?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it, as far as affecting my draft, I mean, everyone that's a like close to relevant fantasy player is going to get drafted. So I don't know that it's really going to change how I draft so much. I mean, when you get down to around 20, 21, 22, like you're just kind of picking straws at that point. But I think really what it affects is your waiver wire strategy. In this format, you can't sit around like you can in a regular league and try to save a couple bucks and hope someone comes up later. There just aren't going to be that many opportunities because most of the guys that you would be paying for on waivers are already going to be rostered. So when that does come up, and it doesn't matter what position it is, if a quarterback gets injured and there's a guy that's coming in that's going to be starting for the rest of the year, I'm not going to save my money and wait for the next running back to get hurt if I'm desperate at the quarterback position. I'm just going to spend as much money as I need to pick up those waiver wire guys.
Right, and I think that's something to be said about, a little bit towards Scott's strategy of how dangerous it is to get your quarterback benched that you drafted.
Yeah, because then you're going to be in a. Yeah, but I mean, if you do, like, then you end up paying for like double for one position. If you draft a Mark Sanchez and ends up Paxton Lynch starting in week 4, then you're in a spot where you spend draft capital on Mark Sanchez, even if it's not that much draft capital, and now you're spending your free agent budget for the same position. So you do have to consider that because those free agent dollars are especially valuable in this format.
Yeah, that's a good point. But because this is such a deep league with all these starting positions and 11 bench spots, what are you doing in those later rounds? Are you kind of like looking at those handcuff running backs who might have a chance to carry a big load if the starter goes down? Are you handcuffing your running backs, or are you maybe taking shots at wide receivers, like wide receiver 2s with upside? What are you doing there, TJ?
Yeah, I'm just, regardless of the league, I'm not a big proponent of handcuffing my own guys just because, like I just kind of mentioned about the quarterback position, I don't want to pay twice for one position on a team. I'd rather take I'm more likely to take D'Angelo Williams if I don't have Le'Veon Bell because I want a chance to keep my first-round pick and then have a late-round value that now is like a first-round, giving you first-round production, so you can kind of get that double dip, and now you're just dominating. So I'm taking other people's handcuffs in later rounds, and then, I mean, there's a couple really late tight ends that might fall, but really the only thing you're really looking at that late in those 20, 21, 22nd round, just a lot of wide receivers that can make an impact that we aren't sure, like the Baltimore wide receiver situation. Someone like Michael Campanaro is an interesting guy that you can get really late. There's obviously not going to be a lot of running back value at that point. Someone like Terrence Williams is falling way further than I think he should. I think he's going like around 16. But those wide receiver values, think about Houston, where we're not sure who the wide receiver 2 is going to emerge, getting cheap guys from there. That's really what I'm looking to do in those later rounds.
Especially guys with like touchdown upside, like long touchdown upside, like the Mike Wallaces, the Terrence Williams, or the Will Fullers of the world.
Yeah, I mean, because in those offenses where we don't even know who the number 2 wide receiver is, someone's going to have to get targets. So if you're looking at either, I don't know, Will Fuller or who's gonna compete with Will Fuller for the wide receiver 2?
Jalen Strong, Cecil Shorts.
Yeah, exactly. So just take the cheapest one, and then whoever emerges, like, you got him for free, so it doesn't matter.
I actually think Cecil Shorts is probably locked into that slot role. I don't see Braxton Miller kind of really doing anything big year one except for a few like weird trick plays. And then, yeah, Jalen Strong or Will Fuller battling it out for the wide receiver 2 spot.
Yeah,
All right.
You want touchdowns.
I guess, yeah. All right. So I don't know. I guess this kind of wraps up the show. We're at an hour. Was there anything else anyone wanted to talk about? Oh, TJ, you want to talk about what? Sorry, you want to talk about what 4for4 is offering?
Yeah, I mean,
Scott Fishbowl.
It's like a laundry list. I know that the top prize at 4for4 is given away is $500 in cash. We're giving away a bunch of swag. We're giving away T-shirts. We're giving away subscriptions. I think someone mentioned that we're giving away like the most prizes. We're giving away so much shit. I can't even keep up with everything. But there's T-shirts, there's subscriptions, there's $500 cash prize that I better be eligible for.
Yeah, $500 is a lot. 4for4 must be paying you pretty well, huh?
No, but I'm asking for a raise now because I didn't know that we were giving away $500 like it's candy.
Yeah, I'm looking at the prizes that 4for4 is giving away. Definitely want the $500. Definitely want the awesome shirts, lifetime subscription, the date with TJ Hernandez.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's it.
I'm a good first date. I get way too drunk. It'll be fun. That's on the docket.
You live in San Diego, right?
Yeah, we can go walk on the beach.
Man.
It'll be a blast.
You know who loves walks on the beach and Tyler Perry movies? Carl Safchak. That's who.
Oh, you're right. Listen, the thing about Carl Safchak is he has bad taste, so I don't expect him to want to go on a date with me.
You're not gonna take him to a nice craft beer bar?
No, listen. All that guy does is just drink like any beer that is covering up how bad the brewery is by overhopping it, and I think you guys would be a better date than he and I.
Oh man, I will say this about IPAs. I read some like article. I don't know if it's true or not, but it says like because hops are like the female part of a plant or something like that, it like increases your estrogen intake and like it can make you like grow man boobs and start lactating. So if there is a reason to fade IPAs, there you go. That's it.
See, and I think that's secretly why you're like digging these plotters, because you're trying to become one by just drinking the heaviest shit you could find on earth.
Yeah, man, I'm all about that plotter life.
As he drinks an IPA.
Boy, I think Carl Safchik is tweeting at us. We're going off the rails here.
Yeah, this is wild. We should have ended this a while ago, but whatever. It's the Scott Fishbowl pod. Our demographic is literally 480 people who are like insanely into fantasy football. I don't care if you enjoyed it. I don't care if Carl Safchik is mad online right now. We had a good time.
He is #mad online.
TJ, I love you, man. Like, I've been looking forward to this podcast for a while. We're definitely gonna have you on again for DFS. But right now, I'm like super excited to start preseason. I think we're gonna get on Seth Yates for that, who's been like the only one covering it for a really long time. And then after that, I just want to go back to. This has been fun with all the guests we've had on. It's been like a crazy time. Like all of our guests have killed it. It's what like the iTunes reviews have said. But I just miss like the good old days with just me and Johnny. I feel like we're like an old couple, and like things kind of got stale for a little bit. We're like, let's try something new. Let's get some young San Diego in.
You guys are the weird old couple in the swingers club.
Yeah, we would swing it a little bit, and it's been fun. But like it just made me. I kind of regret it, and just kind of like realize like how I only have eyes for Johnny, and like. We're going to go back to the good old days of just us two. We will have a few guests on every now and then, but mostly just us two talking DFS. Yeah, so let me shout out ScottFish24 on Twitter. He's also part of the Bull Rush podcast. Man, he's wicked smart dude, and just him doing this every year is fucking awesome. He does a lot of really great stuff, like charity work within the industry. Really awesome guy, and like he really cares a lot about this. Will answer all your questions that you have. So shout out to him for doing the Scott Fishbowl. We're all super excited about it. Shout out to TJ Hernandez and 4for4 Football. They really put out some great work. Chris Raybon as well, and Don and Josh. Shout out to Johnny for being such an awesome co-host. I think that's it. Johnny, anything else?
No, I just want to say that if you're tweeting it, make sure you use the hashtag SFB480. And Scott sent out an email. If people didn't read it because it was long, just make sure you don't time out. If you time out twice, he may replace you. Just make your picks. The timer's going off overnight, so you've got 8 hours during the day. Just make your picks so everybody has a good time.
Yo, what division are you guys in? Just so I could keep track.
I am the badass men.
And what division?
And I gotta remember.
Scott, do you know which one you are?
Already.
Yeah, I'm Clint Eastwood.
Nice. I'm Leo.
Oh, okay, yeah, nice. Nice, two strong male leads.
Yes.
Very masculine.
I'll have to look at
John?
mine.
I feel like Johnny's is like Elijah Dushku or something weird.
I don't remember what I was in. I forgot already. I'm like the worst person at this. But no,
right.
while I'm looking for that,
Steve Buscemi.
While I'm looking for that, make sure you follow all of us. Scott is at Dude Fantasy Bro. TJ is at TJ Hernandez. Look for the Stewie, Avi, and then I am Super Duper Man 22. And that's about all I've got to say. I literally can't find my division because my fantasy league won't load. So I'll let you guys know later.
I feel like everyone's just like turned this off like 15 minutes ago.
Absolutely. Except for Carl.
All right, hold on. Let's do something special. Like if you at Power Hour _DFS and do like hashtag banana hammock or something. I don't know. We'll give you a shout out on the next show. If you've stayed this long and have been listening right now, like you're gonna be our favorite fan ever. So add us and hashtag banana hammock if you're one of like the two people who watch this podcast and then stayed this long. Johnny, make sure you cut that out for the iTunes port of this though.
I will do my best. It's been fun, guys.
All right. Thanks for having me, boys.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on.
It was a blast.